Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about all kind of topics that really are some serious issues that are happening in the United States of America right now. And of course, I lay pretty much all of this on the feet of the Democrats, or at the feet of the Democrats led by Joe Biden. Always remember, Joe Biden said that he was the Democratic Party during the debates with Donald Trump, and I take him at his word for that. But we start right here in Florida, the great state of Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis is slamming Biden's approach to the gas shortage. There is a gas shortage. We're waiting in lines all across the South. Florida has not been hit nearly as bad as some other parts along this pipeline. We're talking about this pipeline shutdown, and we're going to get into the details of that in just a moment. But Joe Biden is also sitting idly by while our greatest friend and ally in the Middle East, maybe in the world, Israel, is under attack, under assault, and Biden and his administration is just kind of taking a hands-off approach. And then if we have time, and I hope we do, we're going to kind of update you on this Senate Bill 1 or House Bill 1, basically the federalizing of our elections process. And we're going to talk about Chuck Schumer coming out and saying that the GOP, the Republican Party, is believing the big lie. And that big lie is the election was stolen. Now, we're not going to talk, we don't say the F word here. We talk about voter mod. We have to be careful about some of this stuff. So we'll get into that. But before we go any further, we have to talk about our sponsors. Top of the list, BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. Now, to find our sponsors, look at wherever you're watching the video, no matter when or where you're watching it, look above the video and you'll see a lot of information there, but you'll see links to our sponsors. Big Daddy Unlimited is one of those. They are your Second Amendment headquarters, because not only can you get guns and ammunition at factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door, but over 100,000 related items, from tactical gear to even swag, but protective wear, survival gear, all of that kind of stuff, not to mention guns and ammunition at factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door. But BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited, is also your go-to place for defense now of your Second Amendment, because that's one of the reasons why they sponsor shows like ours, because they are determined to defend your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis. Then we have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. They are a total fulfillment center. What that essentially means is if you have, for instance, a charity event, say you're doing a motorcycle ride, and you want to produce a high-quality American patriotic-themed shirt to sponsor your event or to promote your event, patriotthreads.org is the place to go, because not only can they design the shirt, but they can make sure that the money is distributed to the charity of your choice. Remember this promo code, the initials of our show, JMT, John Martin Talks, and you'll get 20% off. Check it out, patriotthreads.org. Then we have Recoil TV. We're partnered with Recoil TV, and we're excited about that. Recoil TV has a YouTube channel, just as its name says, Recoil TV, and they produce high-quality, high-production videos all about anything to do with Second Amendment, from guns, ammunition, the latest things. Check it out on Recoil TV. We have a channel within their channel. Our show is archived there. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks, and we'd appreciate more subscriptions and views there as well. All right, let's get into, as I like to call it, the meat and potatoes of the show. This is from a Newsweek online article. Take this seriously. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis slams Biden administration gas shortage response. I tell you what, man, we got the greatest governor in the country right now in Ron DeSantis. I'll put him up against anybody. I'm not knocking your governor. I'm just simply saying ours is the best, man. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Tuesday night that the Biden administration is not taking the gas shortage and the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attacks seriously. Well, as I tell you all the time, ladies and gentlemen, I am American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God, man. Thank God that I live in the free state of Florida. DeSantis made the comments while appearing as a guest on a segment of Fox News Hannity. I actually watched it last night. In response to host Sean Hannity's prompt to his guest saying, let's start with the state of emergency and the gas station and the gas shortage, Governor, DeSantis replied that this is something that is very serious attack on a critical infrastructure in our country. That's one thing that I love about Ron DeSantis. He reminds me a lot in this sense of Donald Trump, which is perhaps why Donald Trump has always been an enthusiastic supporter of DeSantis. You can make a case that Ron DeSantis would not have been the governor of Florida had he not got the endorsement in the primary of President Trump. And I think that is absolutely true. But the thing that reminds me so much of President Trump, that Ron DeSantis has, is he just speaks simple truth. He doesn't try to poll test it. He doesn't put his finger to the wind and wonder. He just tells you like it is. And he said, this talking about this pipeline crisis and the shortage it is causing. He says this is something that's a very serious attack on critical infrastructure in our country. He doesn't have to have a teleprompter to tell him to do that. He doesn't have to have a focus group to tell him to do that. And I love him for that. Simple truth. That is what we need. That is what we miss so much, among many things, about Donald Trump not being in the White House, is just looking at the camera and just telling us the truth. DeSantis added, this pipeline actually doesn't touch Florida, which is true, comes close, but it does feed into many of our gas stations, especially in the northern part of the state along the Georgia-Alabama border, that kind of thing. Because a lot of gas that comes into Florida actually comes by barges across the Gulf of Mexico from refineries in Louisiana and places like that. A lot of people don't know that. We get, and of course it's trucked in and rail car as well. So we should not be as affected in Florida by this pipeline as our neighbors to the north are. But of course, people are reacting to this and hoarding and stuff like that. And we'll get into that in just a moment. So he said this pipeline actually doesn't touch Florida, but it does feed into many of our gas stations. So we declared a state of emergency. Not all the states did that. We're lifting restrictions. This is very important. We're lifting restrictions to be able to get more fuel to the pumps. And here's the thing. He's not attacking the people. Now, it is true that the gas shortage, to the extent that there is one in Florida, and gas stations running out of gas, is mainly due to people reacting, making sure every vehicle is full, all their gas cans are full, which happens in Florida pretty regularly because we're prepared for hurricanes and stuff like that. But people are definitely hoarding up gas, topping off their tanks, all of that kind of stuff. And let me tell you this, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I did, and I'm just going to tell you flat out, I did the same thing yesterday. And I'll probably do it again before the week's out. I filled up all my vehicles. I filled up all my gas cans, every piece of machinery I have, filled up, all that kind of stuff. But and so Ron DeSantis is not attacking the people. He's attacking the problem. And back to this hoarding aspect, and I'm not condoning necessarily hoarding, but who could blame people? Based on what they've seen out of this administration, why would you not take care of yourself? Because the Biden administration on multiple levels has shown that they don't give a hoot about your family, your property, your business. They don't care about you. They don't care if people burn your place down. They don't care if they kick your door in, smash it with a brick. They don't care if, as I talked about, I believe on yesterday's show, if they drag you out of a car and beat you to death in broad daylight or half to death in Portland, Oregon. The left doesn't care about individual people. They may care about the collective whole, but individual people like your family, no. Matter of fact, they want to disarm you. That kind of thing. So who could blame people, especially in the current situation with the current administration, that they're going to be able to fix this? So I don't blame people for hoarding. And I love that Ron DeSantis is not doing that. Now, he may say, hey, be careful about hoarding because you're exacerbating the situation. But he's dealing with it by, look at this right. It says we're lifting restrictions to be able to get more fuel to the pumps. A lot of people don't know this. Now, this is beyond just what's happening with this individual pipeline. We have a shortage of drivers to drive refined gasoline to gas stations. We have a shortage of it. And the reason is severalfold, but one of them is that it started with the pandemic, that there wasn't that big a need for gas because everybody was staying home. So these guys were losing money. So they went to driving other types of stuff. Instead of driving a tanker truck, they drive, a reefer truck. And I'm not talking about bringing legal marijuana. I'm talking refrigeration, just so you don't get too excited. Although they may be bringing that as well. But they also got out of the business and new drivers aren't getting into the business of tanker trucks because there's so many more restrictions and qualifications to drive one of these trucks with oil. And some of that is needed. I'm not necessarily disputing that, but Ron DeSantis understands the problem. So what he's doing is temporarily relieving the restrictions so that other truck drivers that may or may not have all these certifications can get behind the wheel, because there's no difference in driving these vehicles. It's just what you're hauling, and actually haul gas to the needed places. So Ron DeSantis is not blaming the people. He's trying to solve the problem. But of course, Biden and the Democrats blame us all the time. Every problem out there is because America, I haven't said this in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. The new mantra for the Democratic Party, in my opinion, is America sucks. It's always sucked. It sucks for some more than others. And if you elect us and keep us in power, we'll make sure that it sucks for everybody equally. That is what the Democrats propose for America. It's like, what did Cuomo say? America never was that great. All that kind of crap. And they're beat down. The Democrats beat Americans down on a regular basis. But DeSantis went on to say this. This is my governor, man, as I say. American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God, man. Come on down. Just don't bring whatever you're running from with you. The Biden administration needs to take this seriously. Their initial response is, oh, this is a private pipeline, and just shrug their shoulders. That's true. It's like, no big deal. It's a private thing. We're not going to get involved. This is important. This is what Mr. DeSantis said. This is important infrastructure for our country, and it could impact our economy greatly if they don't respond. And he's absolutely right. And they say, oh, this is a private pipeline. That was one of his criticisms. That came out of the mouth of multiple people of the Biden administration. Oh, well, we're not going to interfere with this. It's they were hacked. Yeah, they're under ransomware, but we're going to let Colonial deal with this. Isn't it interesting? Or at least I find it so. What businesses and how these Democrats choose to interfere with business operation. If it comes to the gun manufacturers, oh my God, we got to destroy them. We got to take away, any protection for them where they can get sued. But if it's, big tech and all that, well, we can't touch them. They're a private company. They got to operate like they want to. I mean, it's just unbelievable how they pick and choose winners and losers when it comes to this. And make no mistake about it, the loser in this is you, the American people, man. It is unbelievable. Governor DeSantis' proactive stance in declaring a state of emergency in Florida and publicly highlighting any potential problems from the attitude is a departure from the attitude taken by many other East Coast governors today. That's what I told you. We got the best one here, man. Come on down. You can share it. Just don't bring whatever you're running from with you. Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama, for instance, according to the article, did not declare a state of emergency, and Alabama is one of these states that's dramatically potentially affected by this because the pipeline goes right through there, and their gas, 45% of all the fuel on the East Coast of the United States comes through this pipeline. So it's a big deal. He said, but Alabama's Governor Kay Ivey, for instance, did not declare a state of emergency, but took to Twitter, that'll solve everything, to diffuse the situation, blaming you Alabamians for the problem. Please do not fill up your car unless you need to, and do not fill multiple containers. Overreacting creates more of a shortage. Please use common sense and patient #@politics. Now, I'm not saying she's not right about that. But as I say, that doesn't solve the problem. I don't blame people for hoarding gasoline right now. I really don't. And I admitted at the top of the show, I'm guilty of it to a certain extent myself. Because you got to look out for your family. Because do you really believe that the federal government under Joe Biden is really concerned about your interests? They want you to run out of gas, for God's sakes. Now, this is just my opinion, but I think it's an opinionated fact nonetheless, because they want us to go back to the Flintstones, don't they? Pedaling. That's what they want. They want you to get out of your car, man. Ride the train like Joe Biden. When was the last time he actually rode the train? Governor DeSantis, see, here's the difference. He understands the proper role of government. He understands there's a balance between what government should do and what they shouldn't do. And when it comes to emergency situations, he gets it. He gets it absolutely. But here's the issue. I've played this. I think I played this yesterday. Check out our podcast, by the way. The easiest way to do that is to go to our YouTube channel. You can go, as I said, to Recoil TV. It just popped out of my head. Billy Bob, he helps me. Billy Bob Bass here is my psychic sidekick, by the way. He keeps me straight. He's got a Twitter handle. Yes, some of us are sicker than others. I talk to the fishes. But his is at Billy Bob Bass, and mine is at John. His is at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. We're determined to stay in the political square, the public square. You can also see our show archived on a daily basis at places like BitChute, Rumble, of course, our YouTube channel. But America's Voice News is an excellent alternative to the mainstream media. We don't have a live show on there right now. You could petition them and tell them you want to see us on there live. But they're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can get free apps on your Android or your iPhone. They're on channel 219, Dish Network, and the Pluto channel. What you do is if you go on one of their live streaming venues, look under the shows tab, click on that, and you'll see our show archived in like 16-minute segments for your viewing pleasure. But like I said yesterday, President Trump said this in the debates with Hillary Clinton, and it really identifies the problems with politicians on both sides of the aisle and the difference between he and the swamp. And I think Ron DeSantis fits into the Trump mold on this. But let's hear what President Trump said. And this is basically defines the problem that we're having across the board. Check it out.
Politician, all talk, no action, sounds good, doesn't work, never going to happen. Our country is suffering because people like Secretary Clinton have made such bad decisions in terms of our jobs and in terms of what's going on. Now, look,
he's right about that. The worst. That's good enough. All talk and no action. Now, I agree 100% in general with the president on that statement. But I got to thinking a little bit about it. Is this, and he's right that the politicians have made some really poor decisions that got our country into the mess that we're in now. But I asked this, as I say, from a friend, could this disaster, if you will, this catastrophe, this whatever you want to call it, crisis with the fuel, and let's hope it ends. They're talking about potentially having the pipeline up and running again by Friday. Let's hope that is true, because I don't like to see people suffering. I don't like to see my brethren in Georgia waiting in lines. Of course, I don't want to wait in the lines here in Florida. But let me just ask this. Could this actually not be poor decision making, but actually part of the plan? I'm not saying that the government wants them to hack, the Russians to hack this pipeline. You know, I wouldn't put it necessarily past them, because we know we've had some shady stuff happen at our government level. But what I'm saying is, could this actually, their response to this, feed into their plan to make us get out of our cars and get into the Green New Deal? I think it's possible, because keep in mind, people like John Kerry, who's like, you know, the climate czar, which is apparently one of the top positions in the Biden administration now. He was pushing over a decade ago for an additional, on top of what the feds already do, an additional 50 cent a gallon tax on your gasoline, with twofold reason. One was, and they're connected directly, one was to put pressure on you to get out of your vehicle, right? The other was to take the money and go into alternative energy sources and invest in it. So they're going to take your hard-earned money and invest in that. Keep in mind that they want you out of your cars, period. Think about this. Right now, how do you say his name, Billy Bob? Pete Buttigieg. I always get his name screwed up. I don't mean to, but it's just there's not a lot of Buttigieg in Hawthorne, where I come from. But anyway, Buttigieg, the energy secretary or transportation secretary, right? That's what he is. Now I get it. I mean, they all kind of blend together to me. But he's talking about having a tax on your mileage as opposed, in addition to your gas tax. Believe me, they're not going to cut any taxes, the Democrats. But here's the thing. See, cars now are getting a lot better mileage than they ever did, right? I mean, back when I was coming along, my brother had a hot rod car that you could literally, when he punched it, you could see the gas needle moving. I got one of these little Scion XBs, these little square cubicle deals. And people look at it, they look at me when I jump out of that. They say, jumping out of a toaster. Side note here, I tell people all the time, well, that's true, I'm jumping out of a toaster. But there's two things you need to remember about a toaster. First of all, you never know what's going to pop out of one, but whatever it is, it's going to be hot, baby. So that's what I tell people about my little toaster ride. But it gets like 35 miles to the gallon, which was unheard of when I was growing up, a vehicle getting that. So cars are getting more efficient all the time, yet so you're burning less gas, paying less tax, so they want to put mileage tax on it. They want us out of our cars. And least we forget that Joe Biden, when he was actually in the White House as vice president, these were the gas prices back then. I mean, gas went up, I checked it this morning when I was leaving Hawthorne because I filled up my tank yesterday. It's 10 cents higher a gallon where I filled up today than it was then. This is what Biden and them want. They want extremely high gas prices. They want to make it really inconvenient for you to drive and very expensive so that you'll jump out of your cars. That's what they want. Anyway, I applaud once again our governor, Ron DeSantis, man. I can't say it enough, man. American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for your leadership. All right, let's move on to another area where the Biden administration is either not leading. See, a lot of this stuff, I'm starting to think that it's all part of a design. Because you look at it, we'll get into it right here. This is a New York Times article. Violence in Israel challenges Biden's stand back approach. So he's kind of laissez-faire, hands off. Right. And Jerusalem literally was under attack. They had some bombs there. What was interesting to me. I wanted to show some pictures and images of the attacks that were happening in Israel. This is a side note. So I did, a search on it. And you know what kept popping up? Not that it wasn't real, but every image was of Israel attacking Gaza. It was very difficult to find the image of the rockets actually dropping and the damage they'd done to Israel proper. It was always images of with a mosque in the background or something of Israel attacking. I'm just saying, maybe it's unscientific, but it just seems that way to me. All right, let's get into this. President Biden took office in January with little interest in pursuing, now this is the New York Times, in pursuing an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement for understandable reasons. Now, keep in mind, the New York Times is anti-Semite. I mean, all you got to do is a little research. You'll see that. But so I asked, why is he reluctant? Donald Trump wasn't reluctant. Donald Trump was a peacemaker. Look at how the Middle East was under Donald Trump and how quickly it has degenerated under Joe Biden. I mean, Donald Trump was signing historic peace agreements. Iran was basically in a box. Now Iran is not only developing the nuclear weapon, but they're attacking through Hamas, which is their puppets. They're funding all this. They're attacking Israel. This wasn't happening during the Trump administration. President Bill Clinton has said, here, giving some examples of presidents. President Bill Clinton hosted an Israeli-Palestinian summit during his first year in the White House. President Barack Obama appointed Middle East peace envoy on his second full day in office. And before his swearing in, Donald Trump vowed to secure an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal, which no one else has managed yet. Well, he started by supporting Israel, the only true democracy. They always talk about defending democracy, right? The Democrats. Well, the democracy in the Middle East is Israel. There's not any Arab nations over there that are democracies. It is Israel and Israel alone. I still can't for the life of me, and I'll probably say this again, I can't understand why anybody who cares about Israel, whether you're Jewish or not, if you care about democracy, if you care about peace, if you care about human rights, if you care about Israel at all, how could you ever vote for these Democrats? I don't get it. But Donald Trump, promises made, promises kept, because all these presidents they just listed actually promised, as on their platforms, to actually move the embassy to Jerusalem, the American embassy to Jerusalem. Not one of them really attempted to do that. The only one that did it and got it done is Donald Trump. Promises made, promises kept. But you shouldn't be surprised by this, ladies and gentlemen, the passive nature, if you will, of Biden with Israel. And in fact, actually supporting, because under Joe Biden, they're now funding the Palestinians again. Now, I'm not trying to blanket every Palestinian person, but it is the Palestinians that are firing the rockets at Israel, and Israel is defending itself. But you should not be surprised by this, because this is modus operandi for the Democrats in general. Look at this video. This video clip is from 2012, in the second coming, so to speak, of Barack Obama. And the Democrats who want to defend democracy, well, let's just play it, and we'll come back and talk about it. Check it out.
As the chair, I come before you today to discuss two important matters related to our party's national platform. As an ordained United Methodist minister, I am here to attest and affirm that our faith and belief in God is central to the American story and informs the values we've expressed in our party's platform. In addition, President Obama recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and our party's platform should as well. Mr. Chairman, I have submitted my amendment in writing, and I believe it is being projected on the screen for the delegates to see. I move adoption of the amendment as submitted and shown to the delegates.
A motion has been made. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the matter requires a two-thirds vote in the affirmative. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the... Let me do that again. All of those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. I guess.
And then you've got to let them do what they're going to do.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen. Thank you very much.
Those, ladies and gentlemen, those are your defenders of democracy. I mean, that video says so much about the Democratic Party. Keep in mind, that was in 2012. I mean, these are one of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party, not specifically for that issue, but because they just are bankrupt of ideas. They don't care about America anymore. The leaders, think about this. They're sitting there saying, first of all, they're voting on whether God should be in their platform, whether or not they should stand by what they've been saying for years and the embassy be in Jerusalem, the U.S. embassy. And they voted, they said two-thirds have to vote for it. Now, there's no way in the world that two-thirds of the people by a voice vote voted that way. As a matter of fact, it sounded like the opposition got louder and louder. But I love the part, and I don't know who that woman is in the background, but she comes up there and says, you just got to do what you just got to make a ruling, and just let them do what they're going to do. I mean, does that not sound like Joe Biden as president? You just got to, boom, make a stamp on this, make a ruling, and then just let them people do what they're going to do. So much for democracy. I mean, it just is insane. But this is the modern Democratic Party. And this was in 2012. Do you think they've gotten friendlier towards Israel since then? I ask again, why would anybody who cares about Israel, who cares about freedom, who cares about human rights, who cares about democracy, ever vote for these Democrats? I don't understand it. Please explain it to me. I mean, I understand hating Donald Trump if that's what you want to do, but how can you love on them? I mean, it's crazy. Even before the recent, back to the article, even before the recent explosion of violence in Israel and Gaza, analysts agreed that prospects for a successful negotiation continued to look hopeless in the near term, with neither side prepared to make concessions the other would demand. Let me try to be calm about this, because I'm sure this is going to be controversial. Let me tell you what the solution is over there. I got the solution. It's simple, may not be easy, and there's a difference. I'll give you an example on that before I give you my solution. If I told you, because it's been like 95 the last few days out here, if I told you to go dig a hole 6 foot deep, it'd be simple, but it wouldn't be easy right now because it's hot out there, man. So that's the difference. So there is a very simple solution to this. And you know what that is? It's Israel. Israel is the solution. The state of Israel is the solution. Not all this 2 states. We're going to talk about that more in just a minute. But Israel is the solution. There is no other place in the Middle East where Arabs have the right to vote and freedom than in Israel. Arabs have more freedom in Israel to practice their religion or not to practice it, whatever they want to do, to vote for representatives. They have Arab representatives in the Knesset. No other place does that. They certainly don't treat Jews anywhere in the Arab world like the Jews treat Arabs in Israel. Israel is the solution. Is it a perfect solution? Probably not. But it's the only real solution. Mr. Biden and I'll expand on that in a minute. Mr. Biden and his senior advisors have largely accepted that status quo. So they're just letting it go. Determined to shift the focus of American foreign policy to China, appeasement, from the Middle East, and seeing no reliable partner in an unstable Israeli government led by an embattled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He is embattled. I would agree with that. But he's the only real solution I see, certainly his party is, who has pursued hardline positions toward the Palestinians. Mr. Biden has issued familiar endorsements of 2-state solution while making little effort to push the parties towards one. 2-state solution. Let me tell you, there is only a 1-state solution. It is Israel. It is never going to work. I don't care how you chalk it up, write it down. It's not going to work. Period. We might as well abandon it. I don't think we're going to, but we might as well abandon it because there's a couple of things. One, how you going to have a 2-state solution when you have people now that have the right to vote, Israeli Arabs have the right to vote, and they're doing that, when you have another group that just wants to obliterate you. Basically, you got firing rockets saying that literally put their children. So they're talking about, in Palestine and Gaza, a lot of children were killed. Yeah, but these are the same people that strap bombs on their children and put them out there to blow up cars. So I don't want to really hear about how much you love your children. I'm going way out on a limb here. I got, talk about hate crimes and all that kind of stuff. I got a feeling that if you strap a bomb on your teenage kid and put them out there to blow up Israeli soldiers, it's hard for me to believe that you love that child so much. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have a different definition of loving their children than I do. But there can't be a 2-state solution because Israel would be, you're talking about a small place here, be overwhelmed. And the other thing that the Palestinians always talk about, they want, is the right to return. Do you understand? You hear that, the right to return. Oh, we need to come back to our homeland, even though the Palestinians didn't necessarily have a homeland there. Palestinians are spread all over the Middle East. And if the Arabs, if the Muslims in the Middle East really wanted to solve the Palestinian problem, they could have decades ago by letting them assimilate into their own culture. They don't do it because they want to use it as a political weapon and a real weapon against Israel. But the right to return sounds good, right? Oh, everybody got a right to return. But if that happened, places like Lebanon, places like Jordan, other parts of the Middle East would just release all these Palestinians into Israel at one shot. It'd be overwhelmed. It'd be the end of Israel as we know it. It would be the end of the only democracy in the Middle East, period. And so I want to show you this. This is a video of, and let me back up before I show this. I'm not saying that the Israelis don't have some culpability in any of this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that they're perfect by any stretch whatsoever, but they're the best solution. The only chance for peace in the Middle East is a strong Israel, in my opinion, period, warts and all. But I want to show you, this is a clip of what the Israelis are dealing with on a daily basis now, in this case, nightly basis. These are rockets just streaming in to Tel Aviv, I think, in this particular case. Can you imagine in America us putting up with this, saying rockets were coming from Mexico like this? Check it out and tell me that you could live like this. Look at it. I think you get the picture. And those are bombings in Gaza, retaliatory strikes. And here's the thing, one reason why children are being killed in Gaza, if they are, is because the Palestinians put their rocket launching bases right in neighborhoods. They do it on purpose so that Israel, in order to attack the people that are attacking them, have to bomb neighborhoods. They love their families so much over there. Here's the thing, and maybe, who knows, I might get banned for saying this, but I'm not politically correct. Israel, as I said, I'm not holding them totally non-responsible, but Israel is our friend and our ally. Maybe the best friend and ally we have, certainly in the Middle East without question, but maybe in the world. And there's a difference between being a friend and an ally. Allies, and this is just my opinion, but it's an opinionated fact nonetheless, allies are people who join with you when you have mutual self-interest. You may or may not last long. It could be just in one particular situation, but you're an ally because you join together because you have mutual self-interest. Clearly, Israel has mutual self-interest with the United States. There's no question about that. But a friend is someone who sticks with you through thick and thin. Even if you're wrong, they stick with you sometimes. Because, look at your friends. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. But Israel is our closest friend and ally. They stick with us through thick and thin, and we should stick with them through thick and thin. But it's pretty obvious that the Democrats are being led astray in this. I'm not talking about all the Democratic voters out there. I'm talking about your leadership. That's what you need to check out. The Democratic Party has moved to the left, you think, on Israel in recent years. This is from the New York Times now. Partly because of Mr. Netanyahu's strong alliance with Mr. Trump. So we're going to punish Israel because he liked Donald Trump. Trump derangement syndrome is something else, ain't it? And other Republican leaders, and also because many of the younger activists and members of Congress, the Democrats, are more openly sympathetic to the Palestinian cause than those of Mr. Biden's generation. Sympathetic. I guess that's one way to look at it. I mean, you just elected some communists and terrorists and jihadists. I mean, look at this is Rashida Tlaib. On her first day in office, she obliterated in a map in her office Israel from the map. Now, this is what they say. I mean, Iranians say, they call it the little Satan is Israel, we're the big Satan, and they want to obliterate us. Literally, the Iranians wake up in the morning, you say, hey, good morning, they death to America before they get their coffee or whatever they drink. And wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And now we've elected in Michigan Rashida Tlaib and re-elected her when she literally wiped Israel off the map and was laughing about it, man. And then, of course, these are the squad, right? and I call them, I hadn't said this in a while, but I call them the twats, the Twitter twats, because to me, that describes them a whole lot better than the squad. But remember when Ilhan Omar said this, and she's talking about 9/11 terrorists when she's talking about this was shortly after 9/11. Check it out.
Founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Some people did something. You know who she's talking about? She's talking about the people that brought down the Twin Towers, that attacked the Pentagon. Great for the patriots that stopped that plane in Pennsylvania that was supposedly going to hit the Capitol or maybe even the White House. And she's saying somebody, they did something over there. Now, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably going to get me in trouble again. But I've said it before, and it definitely bears repeating. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it just might be a duck. And by that I mean, if you support terrorists, if terrorists support you, you might just be a terrorist. Ilhan Omar, who should be one of the most grateful people on the planet to be in America, when you look at where she came from, the squalor, and how she's here, she'd be in places where she came from, they mutilated women like her. Fortunately, she didn't get that way. But she's ingrateful. She wants to destroy America from within and from without. But she supports Hamas openly. She raises money. At that thing she was at was a fundraiser, for God's sakes, for CARE, which was founded by Hamas. So she raises money for Hamas. They donate money through CARE to her. So if you raise money for terrorists and support terrorists, and they raise money and for you and support you, aren't you a duck? I'm just saying, But once again, why would anyone who supports Israel ever vote for a Democratic leader again? I don't get it, man. I'm sticking with Israel myself. Count me down. And I'm not opposed to helping refugees and the Palestinians. The best thing Palestinians could do, lay down their arms and join the state of Israel. Israel is the solution. All right, we got a few minutes left. Actually, let me check. Yeah, we got a few minutes left. Hard to see sometimes. Old eyes are getting. Somebody asked me, you got poor eyesight? I said, no, I got 60-year-old eyesight. That's what it is. This is from The Hill, another area where the Democrats are just losing their minds. Chuck Schumer. The big lie is spreading like a cancer among GOP. This is what Chuck Schumer says. This is talking about that SB 1, House Bill 1, where they want to federalize our elections. Senate Majority Leader Chucky Schumer offered a fiery criticism of Republicans on Tuesday for efforts around the country to tighten voter laws amid unproven claims made by former President Trump that the 2020 election was stolen. Now, I'm not talking about, I don't say the F word here. We say mod. I don't talk about stopping the S, something that rhymes with it, called squeal, all that kind of stuff. But the 2020 election is actually still being investigated out in Arizona, in Michigan right now. And the Democrats are just up in arms about it. Now, if there's no mod to be found out there, if there was no squealing going on, then why not let these investigations proceed, and then the people behind it would come up with egg on their face and say, see, I told you so. They're worried about it. And I wonder why they're worried about it. But let me also say this, because I know a lot of people are hanging on, like hanging chads in Florida. They're hanging on what might happen in Arizona, Michigan, other places, those kind of things. Let me just tell you something. My biggest concern about that is not what they may or may not find, because I think there's plenty of mod to find out there. I worry about you holding on to some hope that somehow they're going to find something that's going to catapult President Trump back into the White House. I'm not saying by election like in 2024. That's a different story. I mean now. I hate to tell you, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, because it would take a major ruling from the Supreme Court for any of the evidence to come out to overturn the election at this point. It's simply not going to happen. They're not going to do it. Whether they should do it is an argument, but they're not going to do it. I'd be shocked if they did. The best case scenario I think we can have, and this is what worries the Democrats right now. The best case scenario is the evidence uncovers, which shows that this SB1 and all that is ridiculous BS, and we need to tighten up our ship at the state level and follow the Constitution, and that it gives us ammunition going into 2021, 2022 to knock out the Democrats and in 2024 recapture the White House. That's the best case scenario. If you're thinking that Donald Trump is going to magically appear back in the White House based on this, I just don't think it's going to happen. And I worry that people get caught up in that. Schumer speaking at a Senate, I'm not saying it's not justified, I just don't think it's going to happen. Schumer speaking at a Senate Rules Committee meeting on a sweeping elections overhaul bill, the one I was just talking about, accused Republicans of trying to act upon the big lie that the election was stolen. I'm not saying this is the Hill, to placate and please Donald Trump. Really? I talked a good bit about that, I think, yesterday. Check it out, our podcast. Schumer said, unfortunately, the big lie is spreading like a cancer among Republicans. It's enveloping and consuming the Republican Party in both houses of Congress. It's not. This is not. He's making. It's a total lie what he's saying. What the Republicans, and I don't pretend to speak for all Republicans, what they're basically saying is they're not necessarily running around going in, the sky's falling, the election is stolen. What they're saying is that if the House bill, how HB1 or the Senate bill passes, that basically we're not going to have free and fair elections anymore. That's what they're saying. It's not about return of Donald Trump. It's about following the U.S. Constitution. And I'm just going to say it because the Democrats are looking at this, because keep in mind this, and we'll kind of close the show with this. The Democrats first floated the parts of this bill after the 2016 election to try to explain how Hillary Clinton lost and to prevent it from happening again. And they're terrified that once you really find out what happened in 2020, that the states are going to do what Georgia and Florida just did and others and return to shore up the elections, and they can't win. They can't win on their ideas. They can't win on gas lines, right? They can't win on that. So what they're worried about is you're going to realize that the cheat by mail thing actually worked, and they don't want that to happen, man. So let me check my time. Pretty much out of time. Anyway, Liz Cheney, I'll say this, and we'll end the show. Liz Cheney is up today for whether she's going to keep her position or not. And the Democrats and Chuck Schumer mentioned, oh, she's a hero and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how Darth Vader's daughter, remember Darth Vader Cheney, is now loved by the Democrats. I think it's going to be a short romance. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to all our social media sites, like them, share them with others far and wide. Support our sponsors. We really need your help there. And above all else, ladies and gentlemen, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation, because, boy, she needs it and deserves it more than ever. Certainly needs it. Let's put it that way. But like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.